I turned 54 last spring, and somewhere between blowing out the candles and finishing the leftover cake, I sat down at the kitchen table and looked at our bank account. It was not a pretty number. Not terrible, but not where I thought I'd be at 54 either. There was a time when I believed that if you just worked hard enough, long enough, the money would sort itself out. That's what I was told. That's what I believed for a long time. And I think a lot of people my age carry that same quiet assumption around with them. Then, one evening, I read something. A small piece in a newsletter I almost didn't open. And it stopped me in a way that I still haven't fully shaken. Let me tell you where things actually stand for us right now. Real numbers, no rounding up to make it sound better. We have about $38,000 in savings. That includes a small emergency fund and the money we've slowly been putting aside over the last few years. My wife and I have a combined income of just over $92,000 a year before taxes. We own our home, but we still have about $114,000 left on the mortgage. We have 2 cars, both paid off. We have no credit card debt, which is probably the one thing I can feel genuinely okay about. My retirement account sits at around $160,000. I started late. That part I'm not proud of, but it's the truth. We're not broke, we're not in crisis. But we are closer to the edge than the outside probably suggests, and I know that. The way I see it, a job loss, or a medical bill, or a serious car problem could change everything within a few months. That's not fear talking. That's just the math. I didn't always handle money the way I do now. Even that is a generous way to put it. In my late 30s, I made a decision that I replay sometimes when I'm lying awake. My brother-in-law had what sounded like a real opportunity, a small business. He needed a partner with some capital to get it off the ground. He was confident. His pitch was good. And I trusted him. I put in $22,000. That was almost everything we had saved at the time. It didn't work. Not because he was dishonest. He wasn't. The timing was off, the market shifted, and the whole thing quietly fell apart inside of 18 months. He paid back about $6,000 over the next few years and then couldn't manage more. We never talked about it again. We still don't. That was not just lost money. That was years of starting over. Years that I can't get back now. And what stings isn't that I trusted him. What stings is that I didn't ask a single hard question before I handed over that check. The second mistake was smaller, but it followed me longer. For about 4 years in my mid-40s, I told myself we'd start saving seriously once the kids were done with school, once the roof was replaced, once the car was paid off. There was always a once. I kept moving the starting line. And time does not wait for the line to move. But something happened a few months ago that made me stop treating this as something I could deal with later. I was talking with a man at work. He's 61. He's been with the company longer than almost anyone. And he mentioned, almost casually, that he wasn't sure he could afford to retire at 65, even though that had always been the plan. He said it without bitterness. That was what got to me. He just said it like it was a weather report. I drove home that evening, and I didn't say much at dinner. I kept thinking about his face. And I kept thinking about my own account balance, and I thought, I do not want to be having that conversation when I'm 61. If you've ever had a moment like that where something small made something large suddenly feel very real, I'd be curious whether it changed anything for you, or whether you pushed it away. I pushed away a lot of things for a long time. So I started thinking differently, not in a dramatic way, not in an I'm going to overhaul everything this weekend way, but slowly I started asking myself a question I hadn't asked before. What if things got harder? Not theoretically. What if things actually got harder? Starting soon? There's been a lot of noise lately about the economy. I don't follow every headline. I don't trust most of them. But I do trust the feeling in the room. I trust what I see in the grocery store. I trust what my neighbors are saying when they mention they've stopped eating out or that they dropped one of the kids from an activity to save the money. I started reading. Not expert opinions, just regular accounts from people who had lived through hard financial stretches and come out the other side. What did they wish they had done differently? What actually helped? And the thing that came up again and again wasn't a specific investment or a financial trick. It was a word that sounds boring but kept appearing. Margin? Not the financial term, just the idea of it. Space between what you earn and what you spend. Space between what you have and what you owe. A cushion. room to breathe if the ground shifts. I realized I had almost none of it. And then I found a number that I couldn't stop thinking about. The average American household around my age has less than 3 months of expenses saved in liquid, accessible cash. Not investments, not retirement accounts, cash they could actually use in an emergency without selling something or taking a penalty. We had maybe 6 weeks. So here is what I've actually done. Not what I'm planning to do, what I've done. The first thing was to sit down and figure out exactly what a bad month would cost us. Not an average month, a bad one. The mortgage, utilities, food, gas, insurance, the minimum on anything recurring. I came up with a number, $4,100. That's what we absolutely cannot avoid spending in any given month. I wrote that number on a piece of paper and taped it inside a kitchen cabinet. My wife thought it was a little strange, but I needed to see it. It made things concrete in a way that a spreadsheet on my phone never did. Then I set a goal, not a life-changing goal, just the next goal. I want to reach 6 months of that number in savings that I don't touch for anything else. 6 months means $24,600. Right now, I have about $11,000 set aside specifically for that. So, I'm less than halfway there, but I'm moving toward it. Every month, I move $350 into that account before I do anything else with my paycheck. It comes out automatically. I set it up so I never have to decide, because if I have to decide, I'll talk myself out of it eventually. I also did something that felt uncomfortable. I looked at what we were spending money on that we had just stopped noticing. Subscriptions, mostly. We had 6 streaming services. We used 2 of them. I canceled 3 immediately and set a reminder to look at the 4th one again in 90 days. That was $51 a month I was just handing over for nothing. I also looked at our grocery spending. I didn't go extreme. I didn't clip coupons or drive to 3 stores. I just started buying the store brand for about a dozen items we buy every week. Pasta, cereal, canned tomatoes, olive oil. I cannot taste the difference. That saves us about $40 a month. Neither of those things is life-changing on its own, but together they gave me room to breathe a little. And a breathing room matters when you've been running without it. Here's where I started to feel uncertain again. The retirement account. I've been contributing 6% of my income. My employer matches 3%. So I'm getting 9% in total going in each month. That used to feel like enough. Now I'm not sure. At 54, with what I have saved, I would need my account to grow considerably over the next 10 to 12 years, just to replace a modest portion of my current income by the time I stop working. The math is uncomfortable. But here's my dilemma. If I increase my retirement contribution, I have less money available to build the emergency cushion. And right now, the cushion feels more urgent, because if something goes wrong in the next 2 years and I have no cushion, I might have to pull from retirement early. And the penalties on that would make things worse, not better. So for now, I've held the retirement contribution where it is, and I'm focusing on the cushion first. I might be wrong about that. I genuinely don't know. Have you ever had to choose between 2 things that both felt important and there was no clear right answer? I'd really like to hear how other people my age think through something like that. Seriously, leave a comment if you've been in a similar place. It helps to hear from real people, not just advice columns. The part I don't say out loud very often is this. I am afraid of repeating my father's last chapter. He retired at 67 and had enough. Not a lot, but enough. Then his health changed. 2 years of medical costs and a long stretch in a care facility took most of what he had. He didn't complain about it. No, he wasn't that kind of man. But I watched it happen. And I remember thinking at the time that it couldn't happen to me because I would be smarter about it. I'm 54 now, and I'm not sure I've been smarter. I've just been slower to see it. I'm not panicking. I want to be clear about that. I'm not selling everything and buying gold coins and stocking a basement. That's not where I am. But I am done pretending that the future will take care of itself if I just keep working and stay vaguely optimistic. There's something that happens when you look at your actual numbers, not the ones in your head, but the real ones on paper. It's humbling and a little frightening, but it's also clarifying, because once you see what's real, you stop being able to pretend, and pretending is expensive. What I'm trying to do is simple. Build a cushion. I'll keep it accessible. Reduce what I owe. Spend less than I earn by a real margin. Stay employed. Take care of my health because health problems are financial problems in this country, and that is a truth that becomes more obvious the older you get. I'm not trying to retire early, I'm not trying to get rich, I'm just trying to not be caught completely flat-footed if something shifts. That's the whole plan. And 6 months ago, I didn't even have that much of a plan. I'll come back in a few months and tell you what actually happened. Whether I hit the savings goal, whether I stayed consistent or fell off, whether the job stayed steady. I'll tell you the truth either way. If any of this sounds familiar to you, if you're in a similar stretch of life and thinking about similar things, I hope it at least helped to hear someone else say it plainly, without the sales pitch, without the promise that a 7-step system will fix everything by summer. If you want to follow along as this unfolds, you can. I'll be here. And if you know someone who's quietly going through the same thing, maybe send this their way. Sometimes the most useful thing isn't advice. It's just knowing you're not the only one sitting at the kitchen table with a number on the paper and a lot of years to think about.